Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're all doing really well out there today. In a recent video, in my What I'm Hosting in 2026 video, there was a resounding request for me to talk about setting up Obsidian LiveSync so that you can synchronize your notebooks and your vaults and that sort of thing across different devices if you happen to use Obsidian as your note-taking application. So that's what we're going to take a look at in today's video. But before we get into that, we've got a quick message from today's video sponsor. And now a quick word from today's video sponsor, 9proxy. So if you've ever tried to scrape data, manage multiple accounts, or just needed to mask your traffic for legitimate reasons, you've probably run into the proxy problem. Either the IPs are trash and get flagged immediately, or the pricing makes no sense for what you actually need. 9proxy has a pool of over 20 million residential IPs across 90 plus countries, with targeting down to the city level. And because they're residential IPs, they're clean, 99.95% uptime, not the kind of stuff that gets you blocked on the first request. And pricing is in two flavors. There's IP-based from 1.5 cents per IP if you're doing long-term or multi-account stuff, or gigabyte-based from 68 cents per gigabyte if you're more of a pay-for-what-you-use kind of person. They've also got some interesting tooling. Proxy Hub Lite is a mobile app that lets you run proxies directly on your phone without any need for third-party apps. And Proxy Hub Pro is the desktop version. It gives you a single dashboard to manage multiple mobile devices at once. And if an app doesn't support proxy settings natively, their transparent proxy handles it at the system level, which is honestly how it should work. There's also a public API if you want to wire it into your own workflows, which, kind of fits into the whole home lab vibe of things. With a current promo of 9% off your next order after your first gigabyte purchased through April 30th, and every Sunday through mid-July, you get a 10% bonus on IPs or gigabytes. Be sure to check out the link in the video description for more details, as well as in the top pinned comment. Thanks to 9proxy for sponsoring today's video. So just for a bit of transparency, this SaltyOldGeek.com blog post about setting up Obsidian LiveSync is the best method that I have found to get through this process. So this is what I'm going to be referencing throughout this video. I'm going to have it kind of off to the side, and I've got some notes, but I will have this linked in the video description so that if you want to, you can come over here and follow along with the with this as a companion piece. So again, just for some transparency there, SaltyOldGeek wrote up this this tutorial here. That's what we're going to follow. So shout out to them for that. Again, linked in the video description. Now, just as a quick heads up, we're going to be deploying this in Docker. Again, we're going to deploy something called CouchDB for the synchronization for this to work. Also, I've got a domain name pointed to the IP address of my LXC and the port of the Couch database. I'll show those here in just a moment. In fact, if we come over to my desktop, let's just show it. I've got my domain name pointed to this IP address right here. That's the domain name, or the IP address of, again, the LXC that this is on. And then the port that I've got it pointed to is 5984. And if we come over to here, we can see that the domain name that we're going to use is obsdemo.dbte.ch. And then this utils, we're going to get into that here in just a minute, but this is the domain name that I'm going to use for the sake of this tutorial. It doesn't matter if you see it, it won't be available by the time this video goes live. So just to jump directly into this, what we're going to do, like I mentioned, is deploy a Docker container for a CouchDB instance. Here we've got our services. Of course, that's always the first line in a Docker compose, unless there's still a version there that shouldn't be there, but that's beside the point. Below that, we've got our host name here, or our service name, I guess. Our image is CouchDB with a tag of latest. It's probably better to pin this because of things that have been happening out in the wild lately. It'd probably be safer to pin this to a specific version, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to leave it at latest. Below that, we've got a container name of CouchDB for OBS. We've got some environment variables for a username and a password for the database. Please change these to something that is relevant to you, because this is what we're going to use to log into the database to do some of the conjiggering that we're going to do here in a minute. Next, we've got some volumes. Basically, we've got mapped volumes for the Couch database data area, as well as the ATC. I've got those mapped to folders on my setup, and we can see that those are mapped to internal folders in the application. Again, we've got our port of 5984 on the inside and the outside of the container. And a restart policy, I feel like something for synchronization, the restart policy should be always, not unless stopped. So I switched that from unless stopped to always. So all we have to do now is scroll down, click deploy, in my case update, but you'll click deploy, and we're going to go ahead and confirm that. And really, it already pulled everything. So that's why it happened so quickly. Next, we're going to come over here to the IP, to our domain name, and our underscore utils, like so. And we're going to log in with the username and password that we set up just a moment ago. Okay, so now that we're signed in, what we're going to do is click on the gear icon, or the wrench icon right here, and select single node. Then we're going to create some credentials with a username and password. And then we'll go ahead and click on configure node. From here, we're going to go ahead and click on the database. Oops. We're going to click on create a database. We're going to name it Obsidian, or whatever you want to name it. We want to make sure that non-partitioned is selected there, and click on create. Then we're going to go to permissions, and we're going to specify, we're going to put in the username that we just created and click on add user. Once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and click on create a new document, like so. And we're going to paste in this information. Again, this will be linked in the video description in that tutorial that I mentioned earlier. What we want to do here is change the username and the password to something other than what I'm putting in right here, and click on create a document. Now, in theory, if all of that went correct, now we can jump over to our Obsidian notebook and start working on the process of getting all of this set up in Obsidian. Okay, so this is my Obsidian vault. What I want to do here is actually come down to here. Oops. When I come down to here, I'm going to create a new vault here just for the sake of this tutorial. I'm going to call it tutorial vault. And then I'll pick a location for it. New folder, tutorial vault, and select and create. And there we go. So now I can go ahead and we're going to minimize that for right now. Oops, let's get it out of the way entirely, like so. Then we're going to come over here to our settings. We're going to go to community plugins. Then we're going to turn on community plugins and browse community plugins and search for LiveSync. Right there, we're going to go ahead and install that, and we're going to enable it. Now, you've got a couple of options here. If you're starting with a new vault like I am, you can say I'm setting up a vault for the first time. Or if I'm adding a device to an existing synchronization setup, this is what you would use when we get into adding additional devices to our setup. So for right now, we're going to set this up as a first-time configuration. I want to set up a new synchronization here. So when we're adding new devices here, we can use a Setup URI. We will take a look at that in a little bit. But right now, we're going to set this up manually. So I'm going to enter the server information manually. I know my server details. Let me enter them. If you want end-to-end encryption, which I advise, you can turn that on and enter a password here. I'm going to do just that. And then you can also obfuscate properties if you want to. But for right now, I'm going to skip that and click proceed. I'm going to use a CouchDB, but there are other options here as well. And then again, we want to put in the information that we have for this. So we just want to grab this domain name right there and put in our username and password. And our database name, in my case, Obsidian, like so. And I'm going to skip using the internal API. Although if it says if you cannot avoid CORS issues, you might want to try this option. So if it doesn't work for you, try that. If not, we're just going to run with this. The first thing I like to do is detect and fix Couch database issues. Everything there worked. Sometimes when you click that, there will be a series of things that you have to click fix on over and over and over again until you get through the list, and then you should be good to go if you run into that situation. I'm going to go ahead and click on test and continue. Restart and initialize server because the setup is complete. Now, please confirm the following. I understand that all changes made on other smartphones or computers could possibly be lost. That's fine. Again, we're setting up a new setup here. Again, there's an option if you wanted to earlier. If you've got something existing, you could have gone that route, but we want to keep things simple at this point. So I understand that changes may be lost. I understand that other devices may not be able to synchronize. I understand that this is irreversible. That's all fine. Make sure that you've created a backup of your vault. This is super important. If you don't and things go wrong, then all of your data is lost. Don't do that. You just, if you want to, just go copy your database or your vault to another folder, at least for the sake of time while you're doing this. So if anything goes wrong, you don't lose your data. Says, I understand, overwrite the server. That's fine. Skip and proceed. This happens. I don't know why. It just does. Do you want to send all chunks before application? Yes. All optional features are disabled. Fine. Shall we get started? Yes. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. There we go. Again, we're going to click all of this I understand nonsense again. I don't know why it does this. It's done this to me every time. There's probably something I'm doing wrong. Yep. Great. Now at this point, we've got to a new step here, right? This happens. I don't know why. I'm going to go ahead and set this as a 2 gig standard. You can always change it later. I'm just going to set the 2 gig standard here. Now, if we come back over to our database and open Obsidian, hey, look, we've got some stuff in here. This Obsidian this welcome.md file, this LiveSync version, that's all good. That means things are working. If we come back over to here and we go to our settings down in the bottom of the screen, go to community plugins, go to Obsidian LiveSync right here and click on the gear. Come over here to where the synchronization, the little button is right here, where it says presets. Change this to LiveSync and click apply. Okay, so at this point, we've got our database set up. We've got our Obsidian notebook synchronizing to that database. But the next step we want to do is actually be able to pull that information from the database over to a different instance, whether it's a different device, our phone, our notebook, our tablet, whatever it happens to be. So now we're going to take a look at how the process of getting it to pull information down and do another LiveSync for us. Okay, so in order to get this to synchronize to our other devices, what we want to do is come down here to the little gear next to the vault that we want to synchronize. We're going to go over here to the little wizard guy right here and click on where it says copy the current setting to a setup URI. We're going to click copy. We're going to enter the password for our vault and click OK. And then we're going to copy this probably to an email or somewhere that we can have access to it across multiple devices while we're getting things set up. So I've got that copied and I'm going to click OK. The other thing I want to do is make sure that our sync mode is set to live sync. And then I'm just going to click that and click apply again, just to make sure that everything is synchronizing appropriately. So now we should be able to take this LiveSync URI that we copied and stored somewhere else and go over to another device and import that data. So let's do that now. Okay, so what we're going to do is synchronize this to my phone if I could get my words out. What I'm going to do is open Obsidian. If I can find it, here we go. I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to manage vaults. And I'm going to set up Obsidian Sync. Nope, I lied. I'm going to create a new vault. I'm going to do device storage. Got to give it a name. So we're going to call this tutorial sync. And then we'll say next and create. I'm going to create a new folder called tutorial sync and click OK. We're going to use this folder and say allow. So we're going to come back to here. We're going to go back to our gear here. We're going to go to community plugins. We're going to turn on community plugins. And then we're going to browse community plugins. And we're going to search for LiveSync. And we're going to install and enable. Now I'm adding this I'm adding a device to an existing synchronization setup. And I want to say I want to add this to my existing setup. Now I have a URI right here that I can click, and I've already copied this from my Gmail account, from my email account, so that I've got this already on my clipboard. Okay, we're going to go ahead and paste that in there. It says this setup URI is valid and ready to use. So I'll enter my passphrase for that, and we'll say test settings and continue. We're going to restart and fetch data. Okay, that's fine. Let's see, this vault is empty or contains only new files that are not on the server, setting up for the first time on a smartphone, sharing from a clean slate. Great, I've done a backup, that's fine. We're gonna reset and resume. We're gonna set that, there's a lot going on here. We're gonna set the 2 gig standard. And then we're gonna come back. We're going to go to community plugins. We're gonna click the gear next to our LiveSync. We're gonna go to our synchronization. And we want to set this to LiveSync on both of those and click apply. Now we've got our phone set up here and our phone is still recording. So let's make sure this is still working. And there we go. So while I'm typing here, it is actually showing up on my phone as well. So the LiveSync is working in nearly real time. So there we go. There is how to set up Obsidian LiveSync with at least one device. You would repeat that process for any other devices that you might want to have synchronized here. Now, there are a few differences. If you already got a vault set up, what I would recommend doing is backing up your vault, setting up the synchronization, and then dropping your existing vault into the new synchronization, just to avoid any kind of mishap where you might accidentally delete something, because that would be devastating. So it's always good to start new and then restore your backup into that new thing, at least as far as I'm concerned. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this kind of got what I was hoping to get across. But I think with all of that said, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me here today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.